What's up, YouTube? Who makes their own compost? I do. So I watched Ford boss me today because I value and respect him as a man, a technician, a business owner, you know, everything about him. He's in the shit like I am every day. And I watched another diesel tech guy, and the conversation was about getting paid for diagnostic fees. In my area, you would think that you were asking them for the title to their home or their firstborn when you ask them for a small fee to diagnose their problem. And we fluctuate between $90 and $130 depending on what skill and tools that we need to evaluate the vehicle. And like the diesel tech guy said, we're entitled to that. That's how good we are. You want free, that's what AutoZone and Advanced are. Or the guy that you probably go to who doesn't have the training and doesn't have the skill and doesn't have the tools or the knowledge or let alone the experience, because experience has a lot to do with what guys like myself are to the industry. You know, I've been around since '91. I know my way around a car. I build chassis. I build rears. I've built engines. I choose not to do that type of work. But my point is, when we tell the customer, hey, it's $90 to diagnose your car, they look at you and say, well, I can go get it for free down the street. And then typically that person leaves. My regular customers absolutely have no problem with paying a diagnostic fee because they know the value in me, and same with Ford Boss Me and the Diesel Tech Guy and many other shops out there, that what we say is what it is because that's what we're worth. And go to the dealership. It's not $100 to diagnose your car. It's to the tune of $200 to $300 sometimes. But you're not getting in there for a diagnostic for $90. And just like the video that I showed today about Burns Hyundai checking the car out, and just to let you know, that customer spent $0 today. They spent $300 at the dealership for an oil change and a brake fluid flush, which was far from what the vehicle needed, and the paperwork did not reflect the absolute safety issues that was going on per my video. Caliper bolt missing on the right front caliper. Left outer tie rod end loose. Strut spring perches, not that that's unsafe, but the spring perch seats were all falling out of the struts. This is my point. They got paid, but they didn't even know that their car was falling apart. And the car had so many issues, I don't even want to talk about it. We should have charged them, but they came in and said they need a tire rotation, and this is what the dealership said. So Rachel looks at the paperwork of $4,500 worth of needed repairs and she says, no. They said you need a tire. And then Rachel said, hey, can you look at the tire? It's a pretty new tire and see what the problem is. And there's a nail right in the sidewall. So you need a new tire. Then she weaseled in, well, my car shakes and do this. And I was like, well, they were just at the dealership. Why are they asking me to diagnose their car when they were already there and the dealership did a diagnostic on their car? Well, it was probably more of a courtesy check, but it was a very thorough check for that installer's bank account in his pocket. It was easy and convenient for him. Forget about the obvious safety issues like the caliper falling off and the tie rod end, which is stupid because I would rather got the brake job and tie rod end and struts than do a valve cover and this and that and some other bullshit. But my point is, they had no problem paying $300 for nothing at the Hyundai dealer. But then when you come to some of these people who come to the shop and don't value you, and I'll give you an example. A few months ago, a guy, and I have stories after stories, stopped in and said, hey, my car is leaking oil. I'm a mechanic. I just can't see where it's coming from. It's on top of the alternator. And I said, oh, you're driving a Toyota Sienna, blah, 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 blah. Your alternator is at the top of the motor. And he said, yeah. I said, so what's at the top of the motor that would leak oil on your alternator only? He's like, well, I don't know. I said, well, you said you're a mechanic. And he's like, well, no, it's coming from the bottom. It's coming from the bottom. I said, it's very unlikely that your car is slinging oil from the bottom up on top of the alternator. I said, but I'm not going to hash it out with you over this. I'm familiar with your vehicle and the problems that go on with these cars. And I said, it's going to be $90 for a look at your car. And out the door he went. And I have just a list of people who don't want to pay diagnostic time. And I'm not in an area where I'm densely populated with homes or apartments, or row homes, like big densities like the city. I'm kind of at the end of town. You have to know where we are. If you leave the stoplight up the street, by the time you hit us, the high-speed traffic is like 89 miles an hour. So you got to know me. You got to know the services. You got to know us. But since we're on the highway, people drift in with their junk, and just like the diesel tech said, your garbage, and excuse the language, but this is what we refer to in our industry. People who don't take care of the cars or just drive around, or whatever the case may be, but don't value guys like Ford Boss me, this new diesel tech guy, which I'm going to find his name and subscribe to him, because he speaks real like I do every day, and so does Ford Boss me. And South Main Auto, I guarantee that guy that we watched about CAN bus stuff, because I enjoy other people's content that I don't experience about CAN bus problems on some cars. South Main, do you think the South Main is diagnosing anyone's car for free? Absolutely. He says 1 hour, right? Give me 1 hour to look at the car, and then I'll let you know what else I need to, if I need more time at your expense.
This is what I have to say. You know your worth, so don't settle for less.
But my point is, the people who show up at my store don't want to spend that money.
You have people that do want to spend the money.
I get it, but the majority of the people who are searching for diagnostic work at my center refuse to pay for diagnostic time.
Well, then you don't need those kind of people.
Right. So
it takes time out of your day to look at a car.
Yep. I agree. And I'm not going to say this because I can. Scrub shops out there who close at 4:30 because it's hot. I stayed open to 5 to make sure that the last minute brake job that got towed in with no brake pedal, with a blown brake hose and rear brakes, got done for tomorrow morning. So that's the kind of guy I am. I don't care if it's a blizzard or a rainstorm or whatever the case may be. The shop doesn't close. Work needs to be done. Now, if we're dead and there's nothing to do and it's hot or it's a blizzard, I understand. But a day like today, it was hot all day, we worked all day, and I stayed to make sure that I can get as much work that I can done for my customers, because I take pride in getting on it and getting it done. This way, tomorrow we can start fresh. And that's value in people. And I'm sure Ford Boss Me's probably the same way. He puts the time in. South Main Auto, a bunch of, and that Ford Mobotech, I need to figure out how to pronounce his name. Great content, and I love his stuff. But South Main Auto, he sees things in his environment that I necessarily don't see here in South Jersey yet. Similar to like the Hondas with the GDI engines that I had 4 with carbon valves, and then I forgot to tell you guys about the one. I did get that clean, and then the car did come back today with cylinder 1, cylinder 4, and I noticed that cylinder 4 spark plug was fouled and cylinder 1 really wasn't. I wondered if the misfire monitor kind of triggers on 1 and 4, which it probably does, because there is code that's not really good, like Ford misfire code. So I put a new set of spark plugs in it, I drove it, and then when limp mode again, I'm like, damn, what's going on? But I did have cylinder imbalance on 1 and 4, also with cylinder 1 and 4 misfires. I'm like, damn, are these valve seats still dirty? Some of them weren't bad. They were bad, but weren't bad enough that they were chunky and clunky. So some took a scraping and cleaning, and I got them. And then I was like, all right, well, is the cylinder imbalance on a 40,000 mile car with injectors? And my brother's Traverse at like 30,000 miles had a fuel system too rich on bank 1, and he put a couple things of Tektron and kept using super, and that rich condition went away, and it's probably from dirty injector. So as low as 40,000 miles, these injectors need maintenance. But on this Honda, what I believe is the combustion chamber in the cylinder head where the injector goes through had carbon buildup on the tip, possibly, but I didn't have any misfires on 2 and 3. And I could see the misfire counter on 4 start, but it would only log like 6 or 8, and then it would go away, and then it would come back. So, you know, it's still something going on in there. And then these motors are known for head gasket issues too. So here's where the experience comes in. For these jobs, I've already experienced it in my shop. We didn't sell them cylinder heads. A couple sets of spark plugs, a lot of brake clean, a lot of GDI service. And then today, I didn't do any brake clean or GDI sprays in the intake. And what's nice on the Honda intake manifolds is there's a couple different vacuum ports, and they get you close to the intake ports, which is nice. I said, all right, let's get this engine hot, and I used antifreeze in the IV drip bottle. And I was like, all right, that should help get the combustion chambers clean. And it was about 20 minutes of that at idle, mid, and part throttle. And then I put a can of acetone into 3/4 tank and let the engine run for about 4 hours, or not even 4 hours, maybe 3 hours at idle outside. I took it for a rip. It seemed to be okay today, but when you're dealing with sludge and carbon and you're not tearing it down to, you know, to polish it clean, this is, you know, what I've done. Most places are, you know, tearing it down, putting a cylinder head on, putting injectors on, or, you know, walnut blasting, which is all costs. So, but my point is, knowledge, experience, you know, is really, and the equipment is what you're paying for. Like, you want free. AutoZone, Advance. I can tell you a couple shops that I do a lot of diagnostic work over the phone for many different shops. Many. People call and say, hey man, what do you think? Hey, do you have this tool? Have you seen this? You know, and they keep calling me for diagnostic information because I'm really good at what I do for what we deal with here. Now, they don't call me for transmissions because I don't usually deal with that, but I speak transmission. But it you know, it's very frustrating. It's very frustrating. But I'm glad to see the top level guys in our industry and stand up and say, nah, dude, we don't work for free. And I agree. Thanks for watching.